Hello, everyone. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about fuel mitigation in your home ignition zone and giving you a little info on some of the fuels and what you can do to lessen your risk in wildfire. I'm JT Shaver. I'm with the Colorado State Forest Service here in Salida, and Josh Keene is here as well, and he is also a forester with us in the Salida field office. First thing I want to talk about is really how does wildfire spread? There's kind of three fuels that we look at. We have surface fuels, vertical and ladder fuels, and crown fuels. So your surface fuels is what's going to be on the ground, your logs, your branches, pine needles, and grasses. Moving to your vertical and ladder fuels, you're looking at shrubs, medium age, smaller trees, low branches on larger trees. And what these fuels really do is allow the fire to go from the surface up to the main part of the tree. And then once that fire climbs up into that tree, it really turns into crown fuels, which are talking about treetops, the canopies of the trees. And when fire gets into your crown, this is really where fire becomes more intense and is able to burn a lot more quickly. So talking on defensible space, I know a lot of people have heard about it. We have three zones that we're talking about. Zone 1 is your 0 to 30 feet. This is really your biggest bang for your buck zone. This is where you want to do the most intense treatment. So that first 5 feet around the structure, you want to have bare mineral soil, really no vegetation up close to the structure. Also, we want to have not many trees left within zone 1. We can definitely leave a few, but you want the most thinning to occur within this zone 1. Zone 1 is the most important zone because this is where the fuels are right up against your house. As you move to zone 2, this is your 30 to 100 feet. And this is going to be about reducing connectivity of fuels, thinning out trees, increasing the crown spacing from the tops of the trees, and also reducing the ladder fuels. And then when you move into zone 3, this is your 100 plus feet. Your treatment's going to be a little less intense as zone 1 and zone 2. And we're really looking at wildfire mitigation as well as forest health. The big thing through all of defensible space is reducing the connectivity of fuels. We don't want that fire intensity so close to that structure. We want that to drop down to become more of a surface fuel. So as I was talking about crown separation and ladder fuels, those are really the two things you're going to be working on when you're doing your defensible space. We recommend at least 10 foot of crown spacing between trees. Breaking up that spacing of trees is really going to allow that crown fire to drop from going through the tops of the trees. And what we hope is to lower that down and actually have a low to moderate surface fire. When we talk about ladder fuels, this could be low-hanging branches, shrubs underneath the drip line. When we talk about the drip line of a tree, it's really the extent that the branches go on that tree. And what we're hoping with this is if a low to moderate surface fire is running through the forest, we don't want that fire to jump up to the tops of the trees. So what we recommend is removing the ladder fuels of low-hanging branches no more than 1/3 of the height of the tree. This will allow, like I said, the surface fire to run along and not want to climb up to the trees. Removing of shrubs can also help reduce ladder fuels as well. So anything underneath that drip line you want to clear out and remove, and that will also help reduce the ladder fuels.
All right, so we'll move on and provide some kind of real world examples of what you might be looking to achieve around your home. And so the image that you'll be seeing on your screen right now is a pretty good example of that first 5 feet, that immediate zone in the first zone of defensible space that JT was talking about. The house has really no branches overhanging it, not really any shrubs right up against the home. And there are just a few trees that are in that first zone. This homeowner has done a really good job of surrounding those first 5 feet around the structure in non-combustible material. Here in this example, it's like a rock bed around the house. When you do this kind of work, you're almost creating like a moat around your house. Moving out from that first 5 feet into the rest of zone 1 here, this next image that you'll be seeing on your screen is a pretty good example of the entirety of this first zone of defensible space. As you can see here, there are plenty of trees left, but they're spread out enough that fire won't be traveling from crown to crown across these trees. As you can see, the ladder fuels, those low-hanging branches have been removed, no shrubs underneath the trees, things like that. And so in a scenario like this, it's going to be really difficult for a fire of really any intensity to carry through this first zone. Moving out into zone 2, so that 30 to 100 feet out around your home. This image that you're seeing here is a pretty darn good example. As you can see, the ladder fuels again have been removed. There's not too much that can carry fire from the ground up into the crowns of the trees. There are clumps of trees that are left here in this zone 2, and that's perfectly fine, right? You can leave a clump of 3, 4, 5 trees, whatever you like. But the idea then is if you're leaving those clumps, you just space out a little bit around those clumps. As you can see here in this second zone of defensible space, there is some ground, some surface fuels, and that's perfectly fine. To be frank, low to moderate intensity fires that are the result of these kinds of fuels burning are largely beneficial for the ecosystem, and there's really no need to waste your time raking up pine needles or picking up dead branches, anything like that. Unless you've got big piles of dead branches, things like that are good to eliminate. But the token branch laying around the ground around your house is perfectly fine. No worries there. Zone 3 is really more of the same. You can really carry these practices out into the extent of your property, but really just more of the same. Once you get out about 100 feet away from your house, just continue those same practices. This next image that you're seeing here on your screen is a good example of removing shrubs from underneath the drip line that JT was alluding to earlier. Those shrubs that are out in the open, out on their lonesome, those are no worries. You can leave them be. But the ones that are growing right up underneath the tree, those are good to remove. Again, those are just those fuels that are carry that low to moderate surface fire up into the crowns of the trees. That's what we want to avoid around your house. This image that you're seeing here is prior to any fuel mitigation being done on this homeowner's property. There's a big jackpot of fuels right up against the home, big clump of trees. That's kind of a nightmare scenario if there's a fire in the landscape. And so this next image that you're going to see is kind of the compromises that were made to provide some fire mitigation while leaving some trees in the landscape. Some of the healthier, prettier trees have been remained. Those lower branches have been removed. There's that good compromise where it's going to be difficult for a high intensity fire to carry through that canopy, while at the same time, some mitigation has been done.
The other portion of defensible space that a lot of people don't realize is the home hardening. And when I'm talking about home hardening, it's things such as storing firewood on your deck. One ember can land on there, and all that work you did was for nothing. So a few other things to work on that you can also include within your defensible space is removing firewood from your home, keeping it at least 30 feet away from the structure, keeping your roofs and gutters clean of pine needles. If it's getting fall time and you notice your grasses are starting to dry out and getting pretty high, mowing your grasses can do a lot. So the home hardening portion is just as important as the fuels removal too around your structure.
So yeah, thanks everybody for sitting through this presentation, learning a little bit about how to mitigate some fuels in your home ignition zone. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me, Josh Keene. I'm like JT, forester with the State Forest Service here in Salida. My number is 970-294-1117. Or you can reach me at josh.keene@colostate.edu.